All right. Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me. We're just sorting out the technical problems. Just had a couple of small problems. I'm just now figuring out how to get Connor back in because we had to just change the Zoom room. So super apologies for that. So I'll just pop that in his LinkedIn messaging. And I'm going to come back and hopefully we are going to see the live stream appearing here. Not yet. Okay, so it says it's streaming on Zoom. Is Connor coming in? I'm just waiting for that. Just going to wait to join meeting. Bear with me. Okay, 819. Right. Okay. We are. Brilliant. We're streaming on LinkedIn. I'm not sure where Connor is. I'm just going to wait for him. So I'm told I'm live. Join without video. Just setting up the what's it? 2 people entered, and so we have got Connor and my iPad Pro. Right, Connor is just.
I'm here.
Yes, you're here.
Yeah.
Right, are we live then?
Yeah, how's it going? Okay, now I need to. Okay, sorry. How's it going, everyone?
Brilliant. Apologies for this slight little bit of confusion. Starting off, this first time that we've done this, a couple of technical problems. But I'm Dennis Oakley, and the handsome Irishman is Conor McCarthy.
My name is Conor McCarthy. How you doing?
Cool. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a masterclass about TikTok. We've chosen TikTok as a nice big example because lots of people have heard about it. Lots of people would like to know a little bit more about it. But the real goal of today is to give you a little bit of a handle what happens when we sit down and design a business model, how you can use the approach that we're going to be talking about today to go out and design your own business models to be going out and disrupting whatever industry that you want to.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and maybe in a second, Dennis will go and just kind of maybe just say a little bit about our backgrounds. But business models it's one of those labels that gets thrown around a lot, and you often see it being talked about in terms of the big guys. What's the business model of Facebook or TikTok or whatever, and it can seem like this kind of shiny castle in the distance on a hill. What are they doing over there? What's that magic? So I think one of the goals today is to kind of go, let's bring it down to earth and just kind of divine some of the ways that you can use business models and business model canvas for your own businesses. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
For sure. And I mean, one of the other things that I think is worth saying, the big boys use them, but a lot of the little boys, the startups, you go through an accelerator, you say, yeah, you got to draw the business model canvas, you draw the business model canvas, and then it's just put in a drawer. It's just there to record what you think about your business rather than used to design a business that's actually going to help you grow fast, which is, after all, what a lot of startups want and need to do.
Yeah. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Conor McCarthy. I have background in software. I've set up multiple businesses in different fields. I've done a lot of online education work, working with Seth Godin on his Alt MBA and Akimbo projects. I've kind of moved back into software in the last few years, doing consulting, launching SaaS businesses, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, business models are something that I'm always playing around with. I have, to Dennis's earlier point, I've got many a business model canvas drawn up, perfectly created, and put in a drawer and forgotten about. So I'm wary of that aspect of it too. What about you, Dennis?
Well, I was sort of Connor just reminded me that he was listening to Philip Morgan's absolutely brilliant podcast the other day, the self-made expert, and I was on there sometime last year, and it was the story of Connor said, "Well, how did he get on to sort of doing business models?" And I was running a startup way back when in 2008, 2009. We just got to the finals of some really good startup competition, and the chief judge said, "Oh, you were so screwed." And I didn't realize. And then the financial crisis hit us, and we were so totally screwed. And just in my spare time, I started doing business models. One, to try and figure out how to get us out of the mess that we were in, using Alexander Osterwalder's brilliant book. And then secondly, to make a little bit of spare cash because we were so bloody broke, going out onto Fiverr and doing them for $5 a piece. And I did absolutely hundreds, if not thousands of them on Fiverr, and then sort of took it forward further and further. And that's been sort of 12 years now that I've been playing around with them. And often now it's just you look at the business model and it's sort of the business, the website, and say, that's what the business model is. And it's like seeing the skeleton under the skin, how the animal moves. And if you know that, you can do a lot about it.
It's one of those kind of superpower things, being able to see the model first, if you like. Is there anything, just while we're on that subject, was there any common pitfalls that you saw people make as they went to think about or create business models? Anything that happened over and over?
I think there are a couple of really big pitfalls that people have when they're business models. Firstly, they don't think about it. They think, right, I'm going to set up a law service, or I'm going to start selling fish and chips. And they look at what everybody else is doing, adopt their business model, and go into the marketplace with exactly the same business model. And that's really risky, because if you've got the same business model as everybody else, broadly speaking, you're having to compete on a very, very similar basis to everybody else, Michael Porter notwithstanding. The other aspect is lots of people come on and they say, right, I want to have we're going to be the TikTok of this, or the Airbnb for that, or the Uber for this, or the Bitcoin for that. And they're just taking a business model, porting it into a different industry, or even the same industry, and expecting it to work, with no understanding of how the business model interfaces into the community. Really, a business model is often a bit like a mushroom sending the mycelium underground to interact with lots and lots of other trees. It's very, very context dependent as to whether it's going to work and whether it's going to be disruptive.
Which I don't think people maybe, I don't think is talked about often enough. It seems to be just this is the template for a successful business, but it's absolutely not. It's signposts, and it's a kind of a map, but it's not the territory of creating a new business.
But for sure, I was talking to somebody pretty senior from, I think it was Johnson & Johnson. No, spent a lot of time at Johnson & Johnson in a very senior role this morning. We were talking about FMCG business models and what the disruption is. And I sort of just pointed out, well, really, the big FMCGs, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, etc., have had the same business models for pretty much a century. And those business models that they created were first of all created by the logistics possibilities of the 1870s, 1890s, and then secondly by the distribution possibilities that came out with radio and TV from the 1920s to the 1940s. So those business models very much dependent on the societal, economic, technological context of the time. Now with the internet, companies like J&J, Philips, who make light bulbs, are now starting to experiment with direct to consumer rather than always working through intermediaries. Very different business model, but profoundly fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, which goes back to the idea of like a business model shouldn't live in a drawer or shouldn't just sit, in a file somewhere. It should be a working document, I guess, because the world changes. The world changes all around us, and maybe in a second we'll fire up your iPad, Dennis, so we can maybe just look at the outline of what a business model canvas looks like, both for the uninitiated, but also for people who have seen them before, and just need a kind of a refresher. But over time, I think the thing is, once the model is created, great. And one of the best things a model can do is force conversation around, what are the different blocks of your business. But it needs to be done again and again. It's almost worth like putting something in the calendar to revisit the business model at least once a year, just to kind of go, what's changed in the world? What do we need to update our thinking on?
Constantly. So let me open up the whiteboard, and we can start having a look at that. So I'm going to put it up here. So hopefully you can see my screen, and I'll just draw out the business model canvas, which is just literally a piece of A4. And I'm just doing this, exactly this is all you need. You don't need to get on a computer. You just get a pen and sketch it out. You draw the block, you draw the line across the bottom, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down and cross a few things, and you've got it just right. And very simply, you just put your customers. Sorry about my writing. Maybe I'm just going to put that. I do look like I've got a 90-year-old's writing habit there. So you put your customers down here, your value proposition there, how you get to market, your channels, physical or marketing, your customer relationships, how you make money, how you spend money over here, what your key resources are. Let me just write resources, key activities, and then key partners. And very, very roughly, you can say this side of the business model canvas is your marketing, how you get it into the hands of customers. This side is how you make the business model, how feasible it is to make it. And then this bottom chunk here is all about how viable it is. Are you going to make money from doing this? Or if you're using it for a non-profit, how much impact you're making for the grants and gifts that you're receiving?
Yeah, thanks, Eugenia, for that. Someone once said to me, it's 2 H's and a T. If you're ever just looking to sketch one out and you've forgotten, is it how many lines or how many verticals? It's like 2 H's and a T on the bottom, and you're done. You can go from there. And yeah, really important is then like one side is literally the kind of, this is how we appear to the world, this is what we do externally, and then one side is here's what we do internally. Again, Dennis, because you've done so many of these, are there parts of this that are, I don't want to say more important than other parts, but are there parts that maybe don't tend to change over time and can be kind of fulcrum components?
I think it depends. I mean, in most industries go through a period of discovery. New technology comes out in the first years of the 20th century, when the automobile industry was going out. People had so many different ways of making and manufacturing cars. It was unbelievable. There were 1,300 odd companies making cars in the United States, trying to figure it out. So you have this real period of fecund growth, and then it goes into a growth stage where number of business models available to participants narrow down as the industry collectively decides what the best ones are. Then you get a long period of maturity where most of the benefits come from marketing, fine-tuning, polishing. There's very little differentiation between the business models. And then technology, economics, social aspects, environmental aspects all start to come in again and disrupt the business models. So it starts to fall into stagnation, and you then get lots of new business models starting to emerge, just like out of a rotting tree in a forest or a jungle.
I love that. Yeah. So business models begat more business models. But for today's purposes, I mean, we said we'd take TikTok as a kind of a case study, if you like. And I wonder if people have their chat windows open, just a very quick survey. Do you have TikTok on your phone? Did you have it and delete it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I don't think many people are indifferent to TikTok, to be honest, from what I've heard. It seems to be either you love it or you really don't get it. I think that the converts are quite zealous about it. But yeah, if anyone can let us know in the chat, just pop a comment in there, just out of curiosity more than anything else. And also, it's a big assumption, but I'm assuming that everyone knows what TikTok is. It's very briefly, it's a social sharing platform that focuses absolutely on video snippets. That's what it's all about. So if you've seen Instagram. It's like that, but absolutely just for short-term video. Pretty interesting background to the company. It's grown unbelievably quickly, partly by focusing just on that one core activity, which we can get into in a second. It started in China. It was called Douyin over there, or Douyin, and then they released a kind of international version called TikTok. They bought up a company called Musical.ly, which I think had 100 million users. Anyway, they had a critical mass of users, and then once they figured out that their algorithm was basically printing money, that it was so good that it kept people engaged with the product for more and more time. They expanded from there. So yeah, that's one of the things that that they really did very well, was to kind of figure out this algorithm that literally people can't take their eyes off, for better or for worse. It's just whatever it learns about your likes and interests, it's able to quickly find more of the same. So in terms of value propositions, let's talk maybe just because that's in the middle of the board. Dennis, maybe let's talk for a second about the value proposition of what TikTok offers.
Okay. Can I just take it in a slightly different direction before I do that, Connor? Because one of the things, I mean, when going back a few years, we got lots of different business models out there. We got the Facebook business model, we got the LinkedIn business model, which is a social network. Instagram, Vine, as was with its wonderful 6-second videos, they'd all got slightly different value propositions. And when you're going out and you're trying to think, okay, what kind of business am I going to create? What kind of business model am I going to create? It's best not that you think, well, you sit down, what is my business model going to be? You want to go out and you want to start looking at what are the problems with Facebook's business model? What are the problems with Instagram's business model? What are the problems with LinkedIn's business model? Because then you can really understand the value proposition that you need to create. So I think if we go through that process, trying to understand what the problems were and why TikTok ends up on this silly video, this short form video format as its core value proposition. Does that work?
Yep, I think it's a good idea.
So let me see if I can just share the screen again. And now that I'm writing. Okay, so what you've got, when you start sitting down to do this process, so you go out and let's call this Facebook, and I'm not going to draw the whole of these out, but we'll call that Instagram, or we might call that Vine. The first thing that we're doing is we're mapping out what the value propositions, what the business models are. Because when you're creating a new business model, you're not going into an empty marketplace. There are people already there. And if you're doing the same thing as them, if you've got the same business model, you're just going to go head to head and what Kim and Maboyne sort of call a red ocean of competition. And you just got to hemorrhage money and time getting into that. So what you need to be looking at is, how are these business models weak? And if you say something like the Facebook audience, let's say, it's mostly mums, apparently. I know none of the guys I know are on it any longer. It's all their wives, and the wives are sort of kind of abandoning it. So we've got a process there. And also, how do they make money? They make it from advertisers. And so when the mums sort of go out and creating content, they're always in this sort of competition between, is my content going to be shown, or is it going to be the advertisers' content going to be shown? And Facebook always has that desire to be supporting the advertisers, because that's where it makes its money. So there's that little bit of moral hazard, really fighting against the users. If we then say, looked at, and I'm doing this really quickly, if we look at, say, whoops, got that one a bit wrong. If we look at Instagram, we could say, okay, what's the value proposition here? And part of it is being Instagram perfect. It's a place for lookers, people, trendsetters, people like that. What happens if you're a bit gawky, if you can't sing, if you don't look great with lipstick on, or you really can't get the sort of bulge of your belly into your shorts and look absolutely perfect in your beachwear? I mean, what do you do then? Is this the kind of platform that is for you? So you keep on going. Vine, well, Vine's dead. It was killed off by Twitter after in 2016. So there was no competition there. So Instagram, sorry, Twitter, TikTok goes through all the different business models and trying to think, what are the problems out there? What are the pains that customers are experiencing? Which customers aren't experiencing these the value that Facebook's offering that we can steal? Is there anybody out there that we could offer a really good value proposition to?
Thank you. That was really, really good step to point out, because there's sometimes when you look at these platforms, you think that's it, they're all wrapped up, let's move on. But a very simple exercise to maybe start to approach those ideas is invert, always invert, as they say. So to look at it and kind of go, well, yeah, you're right. Instagram is very flashy. It's very polished. It's influencers and trendsetters and stuff. What's the opposite of that? Yeah, it's kind of, not necessarily more kind of self-conscious people, but people who don't or can't, or are not willing to kind of go that extra mile to put up these perfect posts. And to your point, that's what TikTok does really well. I think I read in passing that their kind of tagline was to inspire creativity and create joy, or something like that. And they're very much like, just ship it, just put it up. Whatever your thing is, doesn't have to be perfect, just do it. And that's weirdly what people love about the platform, or appropriately what people love about the platform, that it is literally like there's lots of content that is well thought about and put out there, but there's tons of it that is just done on the fly. So yeah, so turning that upside down, it's like imperfect content. Who would have ever thought that would be a big draw? But it is in TikTok's case.
Exactly, it is, and it's that content creation, because if you look at all the other platforms out there, the vast majority of them have got an advertising based model, and so there's always the tension between the creator and the advertiser, and the advertisers always want to effectively trying to make money off the content creators in some way, shape or form. Content creators bring people onto the platform is then monetized by the advertisers, and so I think there are a couple of big problems with all the other existing business models that TikTok identified. And I just got to do a caveat at this point. We have no idea what the people inside TikTok are thinking. Yeah, this is us sitting down, working through the business model, looking at it to give you examples of how to think through a business model. So some of this may be true. Hopefully it all makes sense, but it's all usable by you as you're working out your own business models.
Yeah, and another thing to realize on the business model canvas, like the customers of something like TikTok are, of course, the people uploading their video, but it's also the advertisers. They're matching all these various parties together, and that sometimes that can be confused with partners way over on the left-hand side of the business model canvas. But really, like when you're doing a business model canvas, yes, it's like sticky notes on the different parts, but you then have the opportunity to go into each customer segment, let's say, into the advertisers, and to kind of go more deeply in there. When it comes to channels, so the kind of the H on the right hand side, customer relationships and channels. Channels is something that I deal with a lot, trying to help people figure out the right channel, how to approach the right channel, and all that kind of thing. Again, back to you, Dennis. Is there any what's the simple but effective way to approach the channels part of the canvas?
Okay, well, a lot of it, and that's a great content. Let me just question. Sorry, let me just share this again, and you can get the top of my head as I talk. So we've got this. We've got TikTok's business model canvas here, or we'll do in a second once I've pretty much drawn it. So we've got Gen Z over on the side, very much the core TikTok user, and we say let's we're posting silly short videos to express yourself. Yeah, I think, oh, my writing is pretty dire. So let's think about this little bit of a triangle. Now, when you're doing a business model canvas, everything needs to link to everything else. If you got something over here that doesn't seem to have any connection, well, it's not really working, because your whole business model is a system. Everything works with each other, fits with each other to create something more than the sum of the parts. So the idea of the business model is it moves beyond simply having a good product. It moves beyond simply having a good monetization strategy to accelerate your value proposition and disrupt all the competition. So part of what, sorry, a little bit of a long-winded way to get round to the question. So part of what we're doing when we look at the channels is saying, okay, so how are we going to get people to watch this? We need an app, right? But do we want to go out into a pretty intense world of competition to get space on social media? And frankly, is Facebook going to be letting us do lots of adverts on its own platform, or any of the other gatekeepers, because we are potentially going to be a competition, and it's going to be expensive, and they can screw us in many ways. But come back to this. Silly short videos that enables Gen Z to express themselves. Diversity, why are they wanting to express themselves? Because this comes back to the value proposition. They want status. This is the job that they're trying to do. They're trying to find their place in the world. They're trying to get status amongst their peers. And so what does that actually mean? People are talking about them. And so a lot of the core part of TikTok's distribution marketing channels is word of mouth. People talk about what we're doing, what they're doing, and that transforms everything, because more word of mouth means we get more short silly videos, which means more word of mouth. Yeah, more content creators coming in, and you get this virtuous cycle where one feeds the other, and it effectively snowballs, and you get this wonderful exponential growth curve until eventually, like Facebook, you run out of people to add on to TikTok.
Yeah, it's so important. And look, I know it kind of seems like, yeah, they made an app, but equally it could have been your business idea. There are so many delivery methods out there. It's kind of matching the right one to the right channel, and of course there's messaging and everything after that. And as Denis said, it's so important. Like, everything is connected to everything else. It is such a web, and maybe one of the falsities that the business model canvas might present is that it makes everything look very structured and answerable. But when you start to mix things together, things start to shift and change. But that's good, because no business is as clear-cut as we'd like to think it is. And things like channels then feed into the customer relationships, which, like, for anything nowadays, I mean, people are spoiled for choice, as Denis alluded to a few minutes ago. Like, there are so many options for everything now. Most markets you're entering, especially in social, are crammed full. So getting really fine-grained on the detail of your customer relationships, and maybe I'm such a marketing nerd, and like, this could be make or break kind of stuff in the customer relationships. So what would you have to say about customer relationships around TikTok, Denis?
I think if you look at how the customer relationships worked with a lot of the existing things, right? I don't know if you've seen some of my older YouTube videos, but honestly, they were so difficult to do. The sound quality is really bad. The lighting is really bad. It absolutely, I mean, I put stuff up there, and frankly, it's totally terrible. I really wanted to use a four-letter word there. I felt so bad about it. And what TikTok did is it says, yes, I want to be like other SaaS companies, and pretty much automated almost zero customer service. But at the same time, we can see how difficult it is to actually post videos. I mean, I know when I try to post videos on LinkedIn, if I don't put subtitles on, nobody watches them, nobody likes or comments. So I have to take a video, put it into something else, put the subtitles in, make it caption so it's watchable with the sound off whilst people are at work. Boom, that's not pretty friendly. So what TikTok has done is it's made it so easy to take and record your own videos, and that just transforms the relationship that people have with the app, because and you're up there and you're taking your videos quickly. It's just taking out the friction, which then makes it easier to create more silly short videos. Enables you to create more content, and boom, so everything feeds back into the system, the virtuous cycle that you're trying to create.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're touching on like areas like UX and the customer experience and that kind of thing, which weirdly enough kind of goes over to the left-hand side of the canvas, which we can jump over now. Maybe it could be a good time to kind of go right. Most people, for whatever reason, start in the top right or like center to right, but that's fine. You can start wherever you like. I find myself always starting on the right-hand side, but bringing it then back over to the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side of the canvas, there are key partners. So again, remember, left-hand side is more kind of internal to the company, internal to TikTok. So it's key partners, the key activities, and the key resources that they need to operate as TikTok, and of course the costs, their outgoings, if you like, from all that. And just coming off the back of talking about customer relationships, if we were to jump straight into key activities, I think one of the things that people just love about TikTok is how good their algorithm is. Their AI algorithm apparently is just like, it's their secret sauce that's just obviously printing them money, but it's like catnip for people. So I would say their key activity is just honing that algorithm. That's probably number one key activity, just making sure that is in tip-top condition, you might say. I'd say like I'm taking care of a pet, but yeah. What would you say about the activities? Anything else to add, Dennis?
I mean, I generally find that the activities derive, certainly in a software company, they derive from the key resources and how the key resources interplay. And I went out today and I had a look at a lot of the TikTok business models on the internet. And there seem to be a couple of really interesting things there. Firstly, was as Conor just said, you've got this AI algorithm that is able to surface the stuff that you want to watch, which is coming back. It's surfacing the stuff that we've got the Gen Z, and let's call them the creators here. Yeah, this is then directly attacking Facebook's business model, LinkedIn's business model, because it is surfacing the best creators, the funniest creators, not necessarily the Gary V's or the Tony Robbins or the Bill Clintons, who aren't actually saying anything interesting, but are just popular because they've got a billion gazillion followers already. TikTok has gone the other way and said, right, we're going to totally focus on the people who create the best content, which then excites our audience, which then keeps them coming over. And so the algorithm has put creativity first rather than revenue maximization in the terms of advertisers first. So that's the first part of it. The second part is, if Conor and I decided, oh, we really know how to do this after today's conversation, to go out and create our own, and suddenly we have a burst of inspiration tonight, and we have a dream of this is what the ultimate algorithm is going to be. We're still not going to get anywhere because, as Conor pointed out earlier, Douyin, or however it's pronounced, had, what is it, 100 million users. It had a pretty damn huge database of what people wanted, what people liked, what people reacted to, that could be mined, it could be used to train the algorithm on, and you've got that data already, boom, and that's absolutely critical. So the staff, coming back to the key activities, are totally focused on making these two right. And the more that they focus on that, the bigger the gap, because Facebook can have just as good, maybe a better algorithm. Similarly, Instagram can, but they've got to be making the advertisers happy. Yeah. Whereas, because that's where 95% of the revenue comes from. Whereas TikTok, I'm not sure what the revenue breakdown is, but a very large portion of it comes from the creators. So it's very different incentives. And the more that TikTok pushes the creators, the more it starts to screw the competitors' business models, which is the other really, really important thing. Because unless it screws TikTok, Facebook's business model, they settle down into a protracted fight. And it's messing with Facebook's head. So the fact that TikTok, Facebook's and Instagram are copying the short form videos of TikTok doesn't actually matter, because they're not copying the value proposition, delivering value to the creators, which gives value to Gen Z, which gives ad-free revenue to TikTok. Boom.
And we're done. Yeah, no, that's no. That was great. Yeah, and something we haven't mentioned yet, which is so vital. The idea of TikTok is such a razor thin, perfect idea and platform for what it is. When you look at Facebook, I don't use Facebook because it's a mess. It's everything, and now they're going to throw in a TikTok feature. Like, it's going to be lost, or it's going to be hard to divine what's going on there from everything else that's going on. Kind of same with LinkedIn, which it has a tighter focus, you might say. But TikTok, you can imagine, it's razor thin, their value proposition and what they do. And on this side of the business model canvas, yeah, to Dennis's point, like they have this machine, it's going now. I mean, they're in a data center somewhere, there is code just tipping away, and they just have to maintain, make it better, tweak it. That's it. It's just, and make sure it stays up. That's the other thing. Make sure that everything's working and that people aren't logging on, which is, now we kind of take it for granted, but it's actually, when you consider how many billions of downloads they've had and how many hundreds of millions of people at any one time are using it, technically it's kind of a big deal. And I imagine that their technology costs are quite high, just because if TikTok goes down for 15 minutes, that's a big deal. If it goes down for an hour, someone could put that number together, like how much money do they lose in an hour. It's gigantic. On the very left hand side of the business model canvas, then there is the key partners. Now, I think from looking at it, I don't know, like I read in passing that one of TikTok's key partners is the Chinese government. That's maybe a whole other conversation, because of how they started out. But that aside, they probably have technical partners. Again, to go back to the kind of what's going on under the hood, they probably have a ton of services running to keep everything up and running, to keep all their tech happening. In a more traditional, in other business models, what would we expect to find in the partners part of the canvas, Dennis?
Basically, you're in the key partners. It's the partners who are providing the resources or the key activities that you've chosen not to make. You're choosing to buy them in. TikTok, I felt, did have a key partner, and that's its parent company, ByteDance, because ByteDance brought this huge database to the party of what it had been doing with Douyin, and with all the other apps that they've got. ByteDance has got 4 or 5 big apps, lots of them with over 100 million users in China. That's all data, different data protection laws that can be fed in to help them understand it. So that's something that's been given. But for example, Apple, yeah, its key partners, Foxconn. Foxconn manufactures everything. It's got to be manufactured. Boom. So that's a good one. In the case of Tesla, I think it's it's LG or Samsung, that they were partners for the first 2 or 3 gigafactories, producing a huge number of the batteries, helping each learn off the back of each other how to build these huge factories to be making lithium-ion batteries. And so it's very much that sort of thing. BPO or organizations, for an example, when a company outsources its HR. So for example, Google outsourcing the checking of video content to BPO companies and not doing it itself, and having to deal with all the mental hassle that it comes from looking at pretty horrific videos day after day, getting rid of that off the business model canvas, letting somebody else sort it out.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things about putting down your partners is that it brings them to the front. I think maybe in mature businesses especially, there might be a kind of an assumption that, oh, they'll always be there, or that partner is, whatever, we've had them forever. But I think if they're always front of mind, you probably pay a bit more attention to it, because partners can come and go, different suppliers. It's a cog in the machine of the business model canvas, and it's as equal a cog to anything else. Like, no part of the business model canvas should be forgotten about, if that makes sense. And if you read the business model canvas book, I think they mention things that didn't make the cut, that just weren't important. Like, these are boiled down the most important parts. So partnerships, whatever they are, need to be nurtured or need to be created, and they have to be on the board, connected to everything else, as Denis says.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I've just spotted that Amro has just asked a question. Do you start with your own business model, or do you start with the top competition and then make your own? What's the best practice? My view is super clear. You always start with the competition, because you're not creating a business model in isolation. You're going out there to mess up other people. So if you didn't know what Facebook's business model was, that it's mums and it's advertisers, for example, if you didn't know about Instagram, right, you wouldn't be able to design features into your product, into your service, into your business model offering that are deliberately going to peel users away from those existing business models and bring them across. So what you're doing when you look at the other business models is effectively you're looking for pain spaces of pain in the market where groups or segments aren't being dealt with. And when you're focused on your own business model, you don't tend to see them, because you see what you want to do. But we're all super critical. So looking at other people's business model, it's great spotting holes and problems in theirs, and because you spent time spotting the problems in theirs, you're then able to bring them back to yours and then say, okay, this is how I'm going to solve all of them, and I'm going to do it better. Boom. That's where you start getting the growth.
Yeah, it's a great question, and please do, I can't see the questions on my end, but please do fire in more questions. We gave this an hour. I know we started to talk about costs, and we gave it an hour. If there aren't more questions, or if we're happy to keep going up to the full hour, but equally, if people want to jump off early, that's okay. But please do pop questions into the chat if you have them. Yeah, the very bottom left of the business model canvas, the cost structure. This is to me is maybe the most honest bit of a business model canvas, where there's no hiding what things cost. And I think I've seen it before, where I've done a whole business model with someone, and then we get down to the costs, and then they tell me all the costs, and it's like, well, the costs are a lot more than the revenue, so this kind of changes everything. So, like, costs. What have you seen happen when people dig into the costs, Denis?
A lot of the time, the costs are pretty uncertain, and you really, especially comes out with the NGOs, who are creating an undefinable impact with no monetary value that they're expecting somebody to pay for, and this really makes it razor clear where you are aspirational. And really, what you're doing at that point is, let me just change my color, is you either need to start reworking on the feasibility, and often so do like Amazon does and say, okay, let's go through the business model. How do we strip more and more cost out of the equation? How can we increase the feasibility whilst making it increasingly cheap? Or you start playing around with the value proposition or the audience segmentation. So, okay, can we get a more tightly defined audience, which enables us to get a stronger value proposition, which increases the amount of money that we're making, and at the same time, because it's more attractive, it's going to drive down our marketing costs, and therefore you're shifting the viability. So all of the different pieces are working in sort of coordination with each other, and it's perfectly okay at the start just to have this point where the costs have got a lot of imbalance, because when you're first going out to the market, you're just saying, okay, is it is it actually good enough? Is this the business model that we need? And when I first started doing this, I went through 25, 26, 27 different business models to get my company out of death's door. And that's perfectly okay. It's a voyage of discovery, but there comes a point where you think, no, it's going down, we can't find a way, because typically you've chosen the wrong audience, you don't understand the pain, and the value proposition sucks. Boom. Yeah,
I think what you said there, Dennis, and what's that thing about painful experiences being reframed as learning experiences? You went through 27 iterations. Like, again,
yeah.
the business model canvas is not like a one and done thing. It is so useful for making explicit the implicit, if you like, and for kind of facing up to harsh realities or just reality. And you used it quite effectively in that case to finally hit upon something that, oh, the pieces work. This jigsaw now makes sense.
Yeah, it was truly iteratively. We lived in a market that's possibly similar to where we're going in over the next 6 months, 12 months, with the world going downhill. And none of our customers had any orders. And so what do? There's not a lot that you can do on the sales or the marketing basis. And so we're thinking, okay, who is going to be the right customer for us? Can we change the value proposition? What are the key resources inside the company? How can we reduce the cost? And we went from a sales team of 15 people to an pretty much automated quoting system for industrial goods that only required 2 people. And so we changed the whole business model, moving to the final iteration in 3 weeks over Christmas, which was somewhat stressful as we didn't have enough to eat and didn't have a lot of options if it didn't work. But it was, looking back, I'm just going to say it was hugely fun. It wasn't at the time at all. But if we hadn't had this structured thinking to take us through, we wouldn't have found the right approach. And so this is, I think, using TikTok as an example, what you really have to do to be figuring out what your business model is. It's not something static, it's changing, reacting to the market conditions to find that sweet spot.
I love it. That might be a good place to start to wrap up. I think what you said was great. It's a living, I know we all hear about living documents, but it actually is. Like, business models should be out there, should be public. Again, a kind of a regular reappraisal of the business model, I think, is good. And sometimes just a throwing out of the business model and saying, you know what, our idea isn't going to work in this way. We need to think about it in a different way. Are there any more questions in the chat, Dennis? Sorry, I can't see it from my end.
Okay, so question 2. Another one from Amro, and then I'll just scroll back up. Question 2: when you do the competitor business model, how do you know what are the different parts of the business model canvas? Guessing or making assumptions? What is the best way to figure it out, and what do you use? Websites, social platforms, other? It's a great question. Websites, they should say what the value proposition is. It should be pretty clear. Usually fairly quickly in most B2C cases. You can figure out how they go to market, how they make money. Some companies are more obscure. And then on the feasibility side, how they put the value proposition together. Go on to Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn Jobs, look and see who they're hiring. The job descriptions tell you numbers, volumes of those, see who works for them in LinkedIn. You pretty quickly understand what the company sees its business model as being. And there's a little bit of figuring things out. You don't have to get it 100% right. Sometimes I go in with a client and say, this is what I think your business model is, and they said, no, you've got that totally wrong. So there's a small blush on my cheeks or talking about that, but at the same time that starts a very, very interesting question. Why did I think that they got a totally different business model than they had? And you start working it through that. But it doesn't really matter if competitors, you've got it a little bit wrong. What's matter is the structured thought process that you're going through. You may get some things wrong, but when you start taking your business model out to test and validation, you discover that there's a bunch of wrong assumptions, wrong hypotheses there. So you come back, reiterate. If you put the business model in the drawer, never look at it again, you are in a little bit of a mess. Okay, who we got? Anila. So she's got it. Yeah, lots of people have got it fairly early on. Yes, so technical problems early on. So that's it with the questions. Okay. If anybody else has got a question, chuck it in the chat.
Maybe not. Maybe we did such a great job. There are no questions. We answered everything, Dennis.
Amro say thank you. Great answer. So I think thanks everybody for coming along and talking with us today. Conor does amazing startup mentoring for Techstars, for Seth Godin's Alt MBA, and if you go to him directly, I do mentoring and also working with business models. So if you're starting a business, if you're thinking about how do you get a high growth technology company to really get off the ground and move quickly, reach out to one or other or both of us for advice, and we'll help you all the way.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for coming along today. I know time is precious. I think the recording will be available probably on LinkedIn or somewhere.
It will be available on LinkedIn and YouTube as well. I'm not sure if anyone's watching on YouTube. Sorry, we weren't technologically savvy enough to figure out how to look at the YouTube chat at the same time, but we'll figure that out for next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I gotta figure out how to. Oh, I can't minimize Zoom. Turn all off.